Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, great new inventory. Best in pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. Sales staff that works with you. Fabulous service department, all at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. I'm going to answer Brian's questions point by point in a moment, but first, our play-by-play call of the day.
Now the pitch to Bellinger, and a fly ball to right center field. It's well hit, and it is gone. A three-run home run for Bellinger. We've got a new game. It's tied at 5.
Charlie Steiner with the call on the Dodgers Network. Dodgers then tacked on another run to make it 6-5 to win it. Not a new game, a new series. The Braves up 2-1. Game 4 tonight. 8:08 Chavez Ravine. Red Sox and Astros tied at 2 apiece. Play an hour from now at Fenway. So here, if I'm missing anything here, remind me, Matt, just in case. Brian had 3 points. Number 1, Penn State retaining James Franklin. Penn State has reworked his contract over time, and he is getting more money. There is a larger buyout than before, and so they've been doing that. And he did sign a long-term deal. I want to say after the Cotton Bowl in 2019, he signed a long-term deal at that point. So he's under contract, and there is a bigger buyout in it because obviously they want to keep him. All right. And I'm going to get to James' attitude about the job in a moment. So I'll make that point number 4 here. All right. So that's 1. So they've been doing that, and of course they're always going to work hard to try and retain him. They've also been able to get more money to the assistants, which is important. Number 2, Brian brought up investment in football and basketball facilities. So I'll do basketball first, and I'll go to football. The basketball facilities have been dramatically upgraded. Now, I'm not talking about, obviously, the Jordan Center in that situation. That's a little different, right? But they now have the Tom Brose Performance Center where they eat and have film. So they've got that beautiful film facility that they have. It's, I've been able to sit in on film many, many times, and to sit in there, it's really first class. Same thing with the dining area. That's 1. Number 2, they just redid the entire weight room, and they redid the entire training room. All of that. The weight room was dramatically upgraded, and Dwight Galt. I've talked to Greg Miskinis at basketball, and I was talking to Dwight Galt Sunday night. They're both, and I've been in it, so I've been in it, and they are thrilled with how it turned out. And I thought it was really impressive when I saw it. But then you want to talk to the professionals. Does it have everything in it that you hoped, and so forth? And they both say yes. Same thing with the training room: hot tub, cold tub. Things like that. The training room has been dramatically upgraded, and the entire space down there, an area where the fans don't ever get into, that locker room area. And the locker room's been upgraded. The weight room has been upgraded. When I mean upgraded, dramatically. The locker room dramatically upgraded, the training room dramatically upgraded, and the weight room dramatically upgraded. All state-of-the-art now. And the Tom Brose Center, same thing. All right, so there's the basketball facility part. I hope that answers Brian's question here. Now the football facility part. Football facility part. There's been a lot that's put into Lash Building. The new locker room, of course, has been in place now for a few years, but that really was well done. they put a lot into the new training area. Right? I walk in the training area now, and believe me, they're not there treating me. Right? I'll walk into the training area now, and it's got everything that they need. The weight room, they've done a lot of work with the weight room, and they're doing more with it. There's more that's going in there. The area where the players go to, that really is their lounge area, that then eventually leads into the Morgan Academic Center, has dramatically been upgraded as well. First class across the board when you look at it. Same thing with the auditorium where they meet. They've put a lot into that to help make sure that that is on par with anybody else's. So those are the facilities they're working on. Now they want to really start working on the second floor of Lasch Building. They're doing a lot of work. I know right now you can't park in the back of Lasch right now because of all the work that's being done back there. And that's a result of the commitment that's been made to upgrade the facility in that regard. So I hope, Brian, that answers that question. So let's get to, if it doesn't, Brian, just call back and tell me, okay? Please. Number 3, the national perception that Penn State is a stepping stone, second-tier program. Whenever there's a job opening, like USC, LSU, whatever it may be, names are thrown out there left and right. So is Clemson considered to be a second-tier program? Yet Dabo Swinney's name's been thrown out for LSU. Is Texas A&M a second-tier program? Yet Jimbo Fisher's name has been thrown out there for LSU. All right? So James, of course, because of the great job that he's done here, taking a program that had 63 scholarships through no fault of anybody here, just because of some random edict, but he still had to inherit 63 scholarships and to build it into a Big Ten championship team, to get to 3 New Year's Six bowl games in a 4-year span. You're sitting there in another program. Isn't that the guy you want? That kind of guy that can do that? When you're trying to get your program back on track, isn't that the kind of guy you would look at? But the point is, this week alone, Jimbo Fisher had to answer a question about LSU. James Franklin had to answer a question about LSU. Dabo Swinney had to answer a question about LSU. I think what's happening is that names are being thrown out there, and they try to see if they can make it stick. Believe me, at one point, Nick Saban's name was mentioned for Texas. Allegedly Nick Saban's at the top of the mountain. So years ago, after he'd already won national titles, he was sought after allegedly by, or at least his name was bandied about, Texas. Names are thrown out there looking to stick, Brian. And it just turns out that James has had the kind of success that a lot of other schools would love to have to get their programs back on track. That's probably why his name comes up. So now I'll make point number 4, which you didn't ask about. There's always this perception that, quote, the grass is greener on the other side. Except let's look at someone's actions. So let's take James Franklin. What are his actions? Well, I want to tell you right now, this guy is busting his backside to make sure that the greenest grass is at Penn State and not on the other side. Last week he went on recruiting. He went to Florida, Pittsburgh, Ohio, Virginia, and Maryland between Wednesday night and Saturday night. He visited 5 high schools 3 weeks ago in the morning and then went to 2 games that night. Came back, went to practice, then went to 2 games that night. This has been his pattern every weekend that he's been doing stuff like that. Recruiting. And to Brian's point, and it's an excellent point about investment in facilities, James has been the one that has pushed for need better facilities, got to be able to compete, got to be able to bring somebody in to see it, right? Got to get better salaries for our assistants. So he's been busting his backside not to see if the grass is greener someplace else. He's been busting his backside to get the greenest grass where he is now. And I think people have to be able. Maybe it's not talked about enough. I think that the recruiting media, like Ryan Snyder, Blue Ed Illustrated, Sean Fitz at 247, do a great job every week of outlining of where's James this week. But, for example, last week, they practiced on Wednesday. He left Wednesday night to go down to Florida to start the recruiting part. He was down in Florida. Then he went to Pittsburgh. He went to Virginia. He went to Ohio Friday night to see a game of a certain quarterback, I might add. We'll leave it at that. All right? And he was in Maryland. That was his bye weekend. Okay? He didn't go to all those places recruiting for LSU or USC. He went there recruiting for Penn State University. Now, this guy is busting his backside for his current employer. He's been working hard to make sure that the grass is green here, not someplace else. And in talking to Micah Shrewsbury today, Micah talked about the basketball facilities that they've been able to. They said they were still building it when they were recruiting. He says now the recruits have come back and they've already verbally committed. They've had several verbal commitments in basketball. Now that they've come back, they're like, oh, my goodness, this is what it looks like? He says that's what they're saying now, and they already verbaled. He says imagine how people are going to be when they go through and we show them the facilities when we're trying to recruit new guys. That's how strongly he feels about the new basketball facilities. Brian, that's a long answer. I hope I answered each point of it. If I didn't, please let us know. If I missed something, please let us know because I want to make sure that we give you as many answers as possible. I think, Matt, I hit everything. I think.
Yeah, that seems everything to me.
Okay. Any complaints? Because that's your area of expertise.
No, I get the question, but I also appreciate your answers. So I think that should calm the masses.
Well, sometimes you get so focused on your program, which I completely understand. That really is, in the last, 15 years, where fans are really focused in on their team or their program. Like, I'm a real big Phillies fan. Well, let's talk about the Cardinals. I don't really know much about the Cardinals. I know everything about the Phillies, though. Right? Fair? I think a lot, they're like their team. They know everything about their team. And a little bit about the other teams. And so you don't pay as much attention to it. So, and the same thing with this. I don't think a lot of people realize that Dabo Swinney was asked about the LSU job this week. And his answer was, hey, look, he said, I'm only concentrating on one Death Valley right now. That, of course, being Clemson. Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M, asked about the LSU opening this week. Gave a generic answer about it. Stopped by the bank to make sure everything was going great with his 10-year deal and, moved on. And then, of course, James was asked about it. Well, Clemson and Texas A&M, Penn State, they're not second-tier stepping stone programs. But what happens is that when name programs have an opening, the thought process is, we're LSU. We're USC. We need to shop and shop big. And the odd part is this. Pete Carroll was the fifth choice at USC. Okay? LSU hired a football coach from Michigan State that had done well but had never finished higher in third in the conference. In fact, I don't think he finished higher than 4th in the conference. Guy named Nick Saban. I mean, when Saban left Michigan State, all of us are sitting there going, okay, it's fine. Saban left Michigan State. Okay. You sit there and go, oh, am I glad that guy's gone? He did a really good job at Michigan State, but he wasn't awesome and incredible at Michigan State. And LSU hired him, and he won a national title with him. They had the resources to do it. Okay. It's interesting. These two programs have had some of their greatest success with people that weren't considered to be the, oh, my God, hire. USC hired Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll in the NFL, like with the Jets and the Patriots, like, they hired Pete Carroll. Okay. It's like, then all of a sudden it becomes Pete Carroll. Right? LSU. And they hired Nick Saban. Okay, I hired Nick Saban. That's great. And it becomes Nick Saban. I think sometimes we forget that stuff. And maybe the people that are boosters of the programs that we're talking about forget that stuff as well. That even though you want that, like, knock it out of the park, my dude's going to win the press conference. All right? And just we're all going to be like, wow, we got Lombardi. Yeah. Which is what they're all aiming to get, somebody like that. I want to get Newt Rockne. No. You need to get somebody who's the perfect fit for you. And I can say, I think at Brian, you can tell what Brian said. Brian was talking about the academics and everything like that. And Brian pretty much, he said it better than I did. James Franklin fits Penn State. And he sure is working hard to make sure that the grass is extremely green here. This is not somebody that's been sitting back and saying, you know what, I'm thinking about something. He's working to make the future of Penn State football great. He's going about it so passionately right now. You get the feeling he really liked to coach it too. All right. Back with more in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you, the other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years.
Grounded to short. Correa throws to first. In time. Ball game over. Houston wins. So Houston wins the wild card game as they got just.
Okay.
That was not the right Astros cut.
I had no idea why John Sterling was on that cut.
I was wondering the same thing. I'm like, did he do a national broadcast I wasn't aware of?
No, and they're going to cut back on his schedule, by the way.
Yes, I saw that. That's no surprise.
They are in negotiations right now to figure out how many games, because he doesn't really want to cut back on his schedule. He really doesn't want to do it, but whatever. They'll work that out. All right. I hope that answered all of his questions. So we'll go with Frank Bodani in the next half hour.
Yes, actually, Brian, in fact, called me back during the commercial break, and big thanks to you. He said they were perfect, and lifelong listener, and hopefully we'll hear from him again sometime.
Thank you, Brian. It's very nice of you to say. Thank you so much.
And fellow Yankee fan, so even more brownie points to him.
Great. Oh, my goodness. Well, good. That John Sterling cutout should have made him happy.
That's true.
Just hearing John Sterling. Tomorrow's our high school football roundtable, in fact. Selinsgrove's been on a roll. Lewisburg's been on a roll. Shikellamy plays Friday as well. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. That's really hard for those kids. It really is. And for the coaching staff. It's really hard for them. Somehow, some way, have got to be able to get more, get more players involved. I think that would be, get a deeper team, give the coaches more options. Hopefully that happens. But what's really great is the chief is the color analyst.
Always.
And right at 7 o'clock, they lower the cone of silence. I'll take it from here.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai. Best in new inventory, great pre-owned inventory. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Best in the business. I'm not going to deal with anybody better than Sunbury Motors. Always going to have your back. Customer service means everything to them. All right. So, time now to look at Penn State football. Let's go to our good friend from the York Daily Record who does great work all the time. That would be Frank Bodani. Frank, welcome back. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, Steve. What a brilliant, beautiful football kind of day here.
Isn't it great? Oh, my goodness, it's great here, too.
It's going to be a little chilly up there, I think, on Saturday.
Yeah,
Maybe that's even more football-like.
Saturday's going to feel like October, all right?
Yes, finally.
This feels like late August, early September, which is nice.
Yes.
Okay, so through 6 games, your thoughts on what we've seen to this point through 6 games? What kind of midseason report do you have?
Okay, I'd say the defense better than expected this early. The transfers that they've gotten have made a big impact. I can't say enough about Arnold Ebiketie, for example. Where would they be without him? Because they've lost 3 of their 4 top defensive linemen to injury through the beginning of the season. And so if you don't have Arnold, that's huge. And, to me, the offense was going just as planned as well. Gradually growing, maybe not as much, a little kind of quizzical with the running back production, but overall as going until the big roadblock hits. So I don't know. I mean, I give them really good grades on both sides of the ball. Special teams, I think they're doing what they can with that. Jordan Stout, you can't ask for more.
Right.
So the grades were high, and I think they were rising. I think the offense was trajecting upwards. I'm just not sure kind of where we head now.
Right. No, exactly. Yeah, people are wondering that as well as to what happens from here. Now, when you look at, let's take Sean Clifford for a moment, just to what we've seen to this point, and we'll find out what it's with him moving forward, what happens with him. But to this point, where is he better?
decision making. He just looks more confident and knowing exactly more what he wants to do. And I guess here's another way. Sometimes he would get, to me, so amped up before a game that it would hurt him a little bit with his accuracy and some of those decision making. He seemed more decisive, but yet calm. I don't know if that makes sense in doing what he was doing. Keeping his eyes down the field is another big example. He didn't panic. He would roll out away from pressure. Looks like he just had the offense under his control, which when you have his amount of athleticism, experience, man, that's a great combination.
Well, see, you could tell early in a game he'd throw and it would be high, and that showed that he was amped up.
Yeah, and I think some of his decisions were not, almost looked like he wasn't, even the first game of the year, this one maybe even, a little bit like just jumpy feet, like, so excited, what am I doing, where am I going? Just gave that vibe a little bit in the pocket, whereas I don't think through most of this year compared to last year he's had that. It seems like he's progressed. And you can't make up for the amount of games he started and what he's gone through, and I think the bad times have helped him as well.
Well, now that brings us then to the running game part, because he's been protected really well. So regardless of what we see, at least right now, what can this running game mean both in the near term and also into the future?
Well, they really got to get something going now. I mean, there's no waiting. There's no more like slow progression. They need to take the pressure off. If Sean can't go this week or the week after or how long, I mean, they got to have some type of a force running the football. And even though they have the deepest running back room, I mean, if there's suddenly a question, well, who's going to be that guy to do it? Who's healthy enough to do it? Who can just step forward? And I don't, it's one of those strange things where I really thought this would be one of their absolute strengths, their run blocking and their running backs. And so it's not. How does it become that suddenly? I don't know. I mean, to me, all eyes more are on Kevon Lee because he seems to me like the healthiest. Mm-hmm. He's got the talent. He's certainly quicker than last year. He's more experienced. To me, it's that someone can step up and be the guy and carry the ball. Somebody carry the ball more than 12 times a game. I'm looking at that guy right now.
Yeah. Jahan Dotson, when you look at him, to me, I'll say that I think Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and David Bell of Purdue, and Dotson, and you can put them in any order. To me, those are the four best receivers in the conference. I don't know how you feel about it. How do you view him?
Oh, he's one of, let the rest of the season play out a little bit. One of the best of covering Penn State for the last 30 years, not just in the conference this year.
Yep.
When you mention, to me, when I look at him and how smooth he is and yet how precise he is, and now he has the kind of hands that only a handful of guys have where they just don't drop balls that they should. I mean, they just don't do it. And he's one of the few. And, so you start thinking of Bobby Ingram and Deion Butler and Jordan Norwood and Allen Robinson. And, he's in that class at Penn State, which is, those guys were good here on this level, and most of those guys did well on the next level. And he, 2 years ago, I didn't know if he would get there, but he is there, and it's impressive to watch.
Yeah. Right, so then defensively, obviously a lot falls on their shoulders as to what to do. Has the secondary been what you thought it would be?
Yeah, I think overall, I guess you get a couple of turnovers in the first game, and you start thinking, well, man, how much havoc can they wreak here? And they've done okay with that. I don't know if they've kind of kept that run going to the point of changing games. I guess it's a tough thing. Yeah, I think how do you always account for turnovers? It's not an easy thing, or changing games. I think you just don't let guys beat you. You don't let opportunities go by. And I think other than maybe that big pass play against Iowa, they've done that. It's kind of hoping you might think that a defense like that in a game like Iowa, maybe they come up with the really big game-changing play in the second half, and you kind of hate to quibble or kind of grade them too hard for not doing it, but maybe that's the only thing yet kind of looking for from these guys, because there's so much improvement there, especially with losing some of the guys that did the injury. I mean, just the next step, I think Curtis Jacobs has taken the next step before our eyes. I think Brandon Smith, with all of his talent, needs to do that in the second half as well.
Yeah, interesting. What have you thought of Jaquan Brisker and Jair Brown as the safety tandem?
Great combination. Brisker living up to all the hype. I think he's to me, he's one of the better safeties I've seen in my time covering Penn State from all facets. He's not just a big hitter.
Agreed.
You know, he can come up with a big play. You can tell he's a leader. He's tough. I mean, how many times he's dealing with some injury issues. How many times has he been down, but he's got back up and he's come back in to help his team? I think there's big plays for him ahead for sure this year.
Yeah, no question. A guy that we thought was going to be important for Penn State was going to be Curtis Jacobs, because it allowed, you mentioned Brandon Smith, to move inside, to go with Ellis Brooks. What have you thought of Jacobs playing at that field spot?
He's getting there. Like I said, he's growing up before our eyes. I think it's taken him a little bit of time for the game to slow down and for him to be as fast as to play as fast as what he can. But to me, the Iowa game was the moments where he started to flash, where it seemed to me like, wow, this is getting comfortable for him. Just the way he looked. And so I think bigger things, he's going to be the guy that you're going to start saying, well, that's why he was a five-star recruit second half of the year. And I think Brandon is there, too, in a lot of ways, just so close to making the big plays that make the headlines that kind of account for his tremendous physical gifts. So to them together, and with Ellis Brooks playing about as well as you can in the middle, all of a sudden kind of a questionable, what are these guys going to do, linebacker group could be real. I mean, I think they have to be really good, and they have to be better in the second half to help this team get where they want.
Your thoughts on the role Jordan Stout plays, not only to this point, but moving forward?
I think it's probably substantially more difficult to do what he's doing than anybody realizes. How many of us are kickers, right? None of us, really. So you don't understand, like somebody was explaining that the swing for a kicker is not the same as a leg swing for a punter, and maybe not even the same for kicking off. They're all somewhat different. And look how well he's doing at all of them. And I think that's the reason why you don't see people try them all, because it's not the same.
Right.
And he looks now, and I love people, you love kids that get better, right? So Jahan Dotson, markedly better from 2 years ago. He's grown, he's improved. That's a lot to say about him. Same with Jordan. He first year punting last year, a little inconsistent at times, but not now. Look at how much better he is. He's one of the most reliable guys. And he had to punt out of this. Look at the position he was in punting against Iowa.
Yeah.
That could have been cause for some troubles, but it really wasn't. He did a great job.
Yeah, and everyone talks about the job Taylor did, and justifiably so, for Iowa. He did a great job of pinning that ball inside the 10 repeatedly. But what's left out is the great job Stout did of getting it out of there and getting it the other way, because he's the one that really had the pressure on him.
Well, yeah, and he had the whole crowd in his ear doing it from his end zone, where you can't make a mistake. You can't let it get to you mentally at all, or that's the ball game if you make a mistake back there. And he didn't do that. He did a great job, and he's and even place kicking, which he didn't have that full-time job last year. I think he's getting better as the season goes.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I agree with that. He is. Because Anthony Fair is the last one to hold all three here at once.
Yes.
You're going to go back that far. Any thoughts on this game Saturday?
You hope. I think Penn State looks, when I say looks, appears, the vibe that they look like a motivated, even maybe a little bit of an angry team at times, especially on defense. Like, you get the vibe that they know that, hey, that back's against the wall maybe a little bit in a way that we shouldn't be, but we're ready to take on this challenge. You know, you have to have that because it's a big letdown in a sense from a couple weeks ago, but yet they still have all their goals in front of them. So let's see how they want to go after them. So you want to see them physically take it to Illinois, to me. I mean, you want to see that from beginning to end. You don't want to see a slow kind of start, kind of wondering if their heads are in. I mean, so to me, it's the more than it is the amount of points or who's quarterbacking. It's just, to me, I want to, especially, and I think defense leads that, and maybe the offensive line leads that mojo there with the way they come out and they play, take over the game physically, no matter, you know, I go back, I don't know, the feel of teams back in the 70s where it's like, didn't matter how many points those guys got, right, on defense, is the attitude that you're not going to win this game from us.
Right.
You know, that's the kind of thing I think you'd want to see from the guys we just talked about.
Exactly. Always a pleasure. Enjoy the warmth and sunshine of this day, my friend, and look forward to seeing you Saturday.
Absolutely, Steve. All the best the rest of the week. Thanks for having me on.
Frank Bodani, your Daily Record. We'll wrap it up in a moment. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Great to have you with us. Captain Panic alongside.
Also not my Twitter handle.
Captain Panic at WKOK. Scary dude, man.
Oh, I know that.
You. Oh, no, it bothers you. I know it does. Yeah. It's and you hate that I don't play the game. You hate it.
You talk to Lisa, she knows.
That's true. That's true. You got the high school football roundtable tomorrow. So what are the games tomorrow? I didn't even look. So
we've got Mifflinburg and Shikellamy. Selinsgrove's got Southern, and I think that is going to be a very competitive, close game. I really do. And Lewisburg has Milton in the Tomato Bowl.
Tomato Bowl.
That's correct.
There you go.
And that should be a very good game, too, I think.
Well, Shikellamy-Mifflinburg should be a good game, too, right?
It is intriguing because I think these last two games of the year, Shikellamy is going to be one of those teams that they're not going to be favored. You're going to be favored against, but you also don't want to play either because they play hard. They want to be that spoiler type team. So I think it's a dangerous game for both Mifflinburg and then when they play Milton next week. Because Mifflinburg and Milton have a lot to play for in these final 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I thought you handled that pretty well.
Thank you. I'm a little plugged in.
No, I thought you handled it with great sensitivity. Okay. Thought I'd throw that in there. All right. Well, and we also have Jim Jackson on the show tomorrow. Bob Wischusen's on Friday's show. And we also have the King on Friday. So we're sitting there between Bob Wischusen and the King. That pretty much knocks it out of the park on Friday, doesn't it?
I would say so.
Now it's really a competition between the king and Abershausen as to who's the better guest.
That'll be intriguing to find out.
After all, Abershausen does also announce the Jets.
That is a valid point.
You know what the greatest benefit is to announcing the Jets?
You don't have to worry about announcing past early January?
Direct deposit. All right, so it's...
Get the lingerie on the deck. Call the janitor.
It's that great joke years ago. Roy Firestone impersonating Keith Jackson. You know, college football. What does college football mean to me? Oh, about $5 million a year contractually. That's college football. So, yeah, just remember, what's the key? Direct deposit. Last answer you expected, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
This show disgusts you, doesn't it?
Well, in that case, I wasn't old enough to really know. I mean, I know who Roy Firestone was, but too old to know him from his heyday, so to speak.
It doesn't matter who did it. It's the line. The line is, what does college football mean to me? Oh, about $5 million a year contractually. Just remember, the key to announcing the Jets, direct deposit.
So true, though.
You're announcing an NFL team.
Yeah.
All right, back tomorrow here on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Sunbury Motors.